While everyone watched rockets and headlines, one man was building the most powerful company on Earth. Not with spectacle, but with something smaller than a fingernail. The chip that runs artificial intelligence. His name is Jensen Huang, and his company NVIDIA quietly controls the brain of the digital world, not by accident, but by a leadership philosophy so rare it almost feels alien. This isn't a biography about luck or timing. This is a map of psychological frameworks, 9 deep patterns of thought and behavior that turned a single engineer into the architect of modern AI infrastructure. Today, we begin by unpacking the first 5 principles, the hidden mental models that let Huang predict a revolution years before it arrived, build infrastructure when others were chasing quarterly applause, and create an organization that moves like a finely tuned engine. If you want a tactical takeaway up front, these aren't tactics you can copy line for line. They're ways of thinking. Adopt the thinking and you'll shape different choices. Adopt the choices and you'll make different futures. 1. The outsider mindset. See what insiders miss. Most leaders hunt for influence inside the arena. Networking events, echo chambers, and the rhythms of popularity. Huang did the opposite. He cultivated what I call the outsider advantage, distance as clarity. By watching from the periphery, he avoided herd thinking and picked up weak signals others drowned out with noise. There's a simple psychological fact behind this. Proximity breeds conformity. The closer you are to a chorus, the harder it is to hear the off-key note that signals a new song. Huang intentionally positioned himself to notice the off-key notes, the mathematical patterns in graphics rendering that quietly mirrored the workloads of AI. While others chased the comfortable storylines of the moment, he watched trajectories. Leadership implication, perspective beats presence. You don't win by being the loudest at the table. You win by seeing the game the table is preparing to play. Practically, that looks like time for long reading, off-site observation, and deliberate disconnection from the industry noise. He used quiet observation to see opportunity, not applause. 2. The long game strategy, weaponized patience. In a world that confuses speed for competence, Huang's fundamental weapon was patience. Not passive, but strategic. He bet years on GPUs, graphics processing units, when the market wrote them off as niche gaming parts. Wall Street mocked the patience, competitors laughed. But mathematical truth doesn't care about short attention spans. GPUs perform parallel matrix calculations extremely well. Precisely the math that drives modern machine learning. This wasn't gambling, it was calculated temporal positioning. Huang invested in talent, silicon design, and software ecosystems for a future he could mentally model. That kind of patience is a leadership art. You must be willing to pay today for capacity that the market can't yet price. Psychologically, this demands 2 traits: comfort with ambiguity and temporal distance from quarterly pressure. Huang built both by aligning the company around long-horizon technical bets rather than short-term narrative wins. The lesson is brutal but freeing. If you want to shape a future, be willing to act as if you own the decades, not the next quarter. 3. The power of technical empathy. Lead from the workshop. Most CEOs manage from decks and dashboards. Huang leads from the bench. He practices what I call engineering empathy. An authentic, working fluency in the craft of his teams. He can read a schematic, feel the constraints of thermal design, and understand the trade-offs of software optimization. Engineers don't work for him, they work with him. There's a science to this. Shared competence creates trust. When a leader understands the struggle of a craft, their demands carry moral authority because they come from comprehension, not judgment. Huang's empathy isn't performative, it's embedded. That produces loyalty and allows faster technical decisions because the leader's assessments actually map onto real constraints. For leaders outside hardware, you don't need to become an expert overnight. But you do need a working empathy. Spend time in the trenches, learn the language, and translate constraints into strategy. When you do, you unlock a type of influence money can't buy. 4. The culture of obsession. Pride, not fear. Perfectionism as a hammer creates fear. Huang engineered something different. Inspired obsession. Inside NVIDIA, excellence isn't enforced by guilt or threat. It is cultivated through a shared pride in craft. Teams refine designs not because they're punished for flaws, but because they're emotionally invested in making something beautiful, fast, efficient, precise. This distinction matters psychologically. Intrinsic motivation beats extrinsic compulsion over the long run. Huang's culture channels high standards into identity. Engineers want to be the people who solve impossible problems. The result is sustainable intensity, high velocity, extreme care, and an appetite for iterative perfection. How to seed this? Set standards that are aspirational and make the path to them visible. Celebrate iterations publicly. Reward craftsmanship more than just outcomes. When teams take pride in process, obsession becomes an engine, not a burden. 5. Strategic invisibility, influence without the spotlight. In a world addicted to personal brands and headlines, Huang chose a counterintuitive move. Be discreet. NVIDIA stayed under the general public radar for years, focusing on engineering depth rather than public theater. That strategic invisibility reduced distraction, minimized competitor signaling, and let the company accumulate technical advantage quietly. There's a psychological benefit here. Public attention is attention capital, finite and volatile. Spend it on the wrong fights, and you trade time for optics. Huang spent it on architecture. When the AI wave crashed into public consciousness, NVIDIA already controlled the rails. Strategic invisibility also protects a leader's cognitive bandwidth. Fame fragments focus. Stealth preserves it. For modern leaders, this looks like choosing privacy over performative visibility, letting results seed reputation, and avoiding the ego traps of constant exposure. 6. The art of controlled chaos. Experimentation with guardrails. Huang learned to treat innovation like a laboratory. High-velocity experiments nested inside strict accountability. That's what I mean by controlled chaos. You permit messy trials and heroic failures, but you require rapid extraction of learning, metrics, and next steps. Why this works? Psychologically, humans do their most creative work when pressure feels surmountable, not paralyzing. NVIDIA built systems that normalize risk-taking. Fast iterations, rapid postmortems, and a cultural norm that fail fast must be accompanied by learn faster. That subtle shift separates teams who repeat mistakes from teams who compound insight. Concrete evidence of this engineering rhythm shows up in the way NVIDIA pivoted architectures, adding new capabilities like tensor math and mixed precision compute late in a product cycle when breakthroughs demanded it. That ability to bend projects without breaking them is a hallmark of a company that treats chaos as an engine, not a threat. 7. The leadership mirror, hiring character over CVs. Huang once said that the single most important decision is who you let into the building. That's not HR hyperbole. It's the leadership mirror principle. Culture reflects leadership because people you hire become your echo. Huang's filter is simple but strict. Intellectual humility, intense curiosity, and composure under pressure. Why these traits? Intellectual humility lets teams pivot when models fail. Curiosity fuels relentless improvement. Composure contains panic. Hiring for these traits, not just pedigree, built an organization that scaled technically without fracturing culturally. That's how NVIDIA kept its DNA intact while growing from hundreds to tens of thousands of employees. 8. The reinvention loop, cannibalized to survive. NVIDIA's transformation wasn't a single leap. It was a pattern of deliberate self-disruption, killing revenue lines, reallocating R&D, and committing to bets that looked reckless in the press. I call this the reinvention loop. Periodically dismantle your comfort zones before competitors force you to. 9. The psychology of relentless calm, influence through composure. Crisis reveals character. Across recalls, shortages, and geopolitical friction, Huang's public poise has been striking. Not stoic numbness, but relentless calm, grounded in competence. That composure transmits. Teams mirror leaders' emotional states via social and neural contagion. When the CEO is calm, teams plan coherently. When the CEO panics, the organization scatters. Jensen Huang's leadership is compelling because it's quietly audacious. Predict, build, and steward long-term infrastructure while most of the world chases noise. NVIDIA's rise is a story of mindset engineering as much as hardware engineering, and it offers a testable blueprint for any leader who wants to move from short-term applause to generational impact. Subscribe to Next Level Leadership, where we decode the hidden psychology behind the world's most consequential leaders.